Welcome to Hofstra University in Long Island, where in just over 24 hours, quite possibly the most anticipated political event in recent history will be taking place. This is Perino and Starwalt. I'll tell you what, I'm Dana Perino, co-host of The Five.
And I'm Chris Starwalt, Fox News digital politics editor.
And we've got a lot of ground to cover tonight. We are going to take you inside the last-minute preparations to examine where things stand at this very moment. With the debates and with the polling. We're going to talk about that, and we have a great panel for you, too.
Is this awesome? This is awesome.
This is awesome, and on our second week, we took the show on the road.
When we were doing a podcast and we thought no one was listening, they would not have let us come out to Hofstra to do this. So there are upsides to doing a television show.
And also, you could wear whatever you wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
So you had to suit up for this.
Right now, it's pants, no matter what.
I had a question for you. So this is a big night. There's a lot of excitement here. It's a beautiful day in Long Island. And I want to know, with this anticipatory moment, the night before the first presidential debate of 2016 would be like the equivalent of what in West Virginia?
Well, West Virginia is one of the 50 states in the union.
Indeed.
We do normal things there, too. We're not just...
I know, but it's a special place, so I wondered if you had a little hillbilly thing you wanted to share.
You're not allowed to say that. Only I'm allowed
I thought that's what you wanted me to say.
That's art. We took that back. I do think that there are some similarities. The thing I was thinking about earlier, I mentioned to you, was the first night before buck season. Those are, for people from the city, those are deer. They have antlers. And the male variety. Of the male variety. And the night before, the school's off for the next day. There's no school the next day. Everybody's getting ready.
For real?
For real.
You don't have to go to school?
No,
on the first day of
gun buck season in November. There is no school that day because everybody's going to skip anyway.
Add that to another reason to move to West Virginia.
Another good reason to be in West Virginia. But there's this great, there's going to be bloodshed. You know that somebody is going to come home happy. Some people are going to come home unhappy, but there is this great anticipation in the air, and it sort of feels that energy is real here.
Right, so it could be true. Some people, there will be bloodshed.
There will be blood.
You think because it's going to be a debate, and they both have a lot at stake.
If you think about, for both of these people, we've been talking, and everybody's been talking about sort of this endless expectations game. Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? When you get right down to it, these are two competitors. These are gladiators. She's been in public life and politics since the 1960s. He has been a television star and a public figure for nearly as long, since the early 1980s. Oh, yeah, and a businessman. But these are both combatants.
But he has dabbled in politics.
2000, he ran for president briefly on the Reform Party ticket, flirted with a run, as we remember, in 2012. But what I mean is, these are two people who, no matter what their handlers, whatever the polls, whatever the campaign managers say, when they get out into that space, the raw emotion and the competitive drive of these two people is going to take over no matter what their people told them.
And there's so much at stake, and we have new polls, and you are the king. He is the king of, remember, Slim Jim is the example of a perfect polling average.
Right.
And we have new averages, actually, just that we can take a look at.
Can we take a look at the...
Pull that on up, because...
There we see it, the halftime report, and I know you're already a subscriber to Halftime Report because it's so delicious, but the Halftime Report average of polls shows Hillary Clinton 47.4% to Donald Trump's 43.8%. You see underneath the polls that are included in there. And so that's the state of the race as we come here, which is she's ahead. It's sort of like where we started out in May. She's ahead, but not by a bunch. She's ahead, but it's far from prohibitive, and there's still enough slack in the line. There's still enough movement here that a big performance by one or the other of these, or a bad performance by one or the other of these people, could swing this race in a substantial way.
Do you buy into something that's a saying that I've heard before, so it's not mine, and I used it yesterday on The Five, and I felt bad that I didn't credit whoever the brilliant person was that came up with it, but that you it's rare that you could win a general election based on a debate, but that you could lose a general election based on a debate. Like if you did terribly.
Gerald Ford famously, there is no Soviet domination of Eastern Europe, and Poland was like, bro.
I feel bad for him, though, because I read the James Fallow piece in the Atlantic. It's a long 11,000-word piece, and he explains what Ford was talking about there. And Ford kind of deserves a pass in history.
Okay, well, we'll mark it down. When we write the I'll Tell You What version of presidential history, we will definitely...
A great textbook.
It would be, I'll tell you, now sit down and listen, I'll tell you what.
You would want your children to read that one.
I don't know if they'd be any smarter for it, but yes, I agree with your premise wholeheartedly, which is if you have a great performance, if it's a knockout, if it's Boffo, ask Mitt Romney in 2012, hey, you have a great performance, that can evaporate. But what you can do is screw up so much that it stays. And Admiral James Stockdale, bless his heart, a prisoner of war, an American hero who Ross Perot picked as his running mate.
Yep.
That was it. And that was it for Stockdale, and it hurt Perot substantially. So, yeah, you can have those blowout moments. But if you're so cautious that you're worried that you're going to do that, you know what you might do?
Right.
You might just go up there and lay a big egg. You might
What if you had no energy?
You don't want to be low energy.
No.
We don't never want
We
you
know
never want to
that
be low energy.
from the primary.
Low energy is bad.
But you don't want to be too high energy.
Right. If you go in and if you remember in the vice presidential debate that we had between Paul Ryan and Joe Biden, Biden came in and the choppers were out. He was just he couldn't wait to get in and take a huge bite out of Paul Ryan's backside, and he was high energy, and Ryan seemed
So calm.
low energy. It was too far down here. So it's going to be interesting to see, because Clinton is, I don't want to be pejorative, I don't want to say that she's low energy herself, but she certainly, compared to Trump, is a much more staid presence.
Well, okay, I want to ask you about one thing, which is the nonverbals, because we're going to, throughout this show, we're going to talk about how they should position themselves, what they might say, how they might argue. But a lot of this is in the nonverbals. And one of the questions that we ask the people, is who would you rather have a beer with?
Okay.
Okay? So in this debate moment with Bush, then Governor George W. Bush versus Vice President Al Gore.
Right.
This was the moment that I'm told that the Bush team really believed that he had locked up that who would you rather have a beer with moment, and it was nonverbal. Take a look.
It's not only what's your philosophy and what's your position on issues, but can you get things done? And I believe I can.
Honestly, that is just the best. And I have a little bit of insight about that, because I wasn't there and I wasn't on the team at the time. But I talked to some people that were there. And I said, surely you couldn't script that moment. They said, no, but you can prepare for it. So in the debate prep, they had watched all these tapes of Al Gore and how he conducted himself, and that he liked to get into somebody's personal space to intimidate them.
Right. He's a big guy.
So George W. Bush knew that that might be coming, and then he decided to handle it that way.
And the nonverbals, and certainly we know about when Congressman Rick Blasio went over to try to get Hillary Clinton to sign a pledge.
And she sort of shrank back.
We're like, oh, gross, dude. Like, why are you coming over?
I don't think she would really shrink back, though.
No, it was not.
Was that an act?
Well, whether she was shrinking back or not, she wanted to show offense and that he was doing that. So the nonverbals, but let's also think about the nonverbals in this way. You don't know, and I think this was very true for Barack Obama in 2008. Can a guy, his middle name is Hussein, can a guy who is a half-term senator, can a guy really be president of the United States? This setting in this space, it's sort of like, put him there, and does it look credible? Is it reasonable? So there is the greatest nonverbal test is just as they walk out on stage, can you say, yes, I see that person as the president. That seems okay to me. Or they say, I'm not buying it.
So Amy Walter of the Cook Political Report, she's
smart.
She's so smart. Everybody should follow her, Amy Walter. So she was writing this week that one of the things that both candidates need to do is try to ease any undecided's torment about this choice, because her point was that this is historically, we have an unprecedented situation with the two most unpopular candidates in our history.
Right. I mean, look, these people are going to get so much recommendation. Do this.
Thank you.
Exactly. I think they agree with Dana. I think they obviously agree with Dana.
I love the millennials.
You're huge with them. They're going to get so much advice. Their heads are going to be so full of junk. Do it like this, but don't do it like that.
I know,
Say
I don't
this,
like
but
that.
don't wear that. What you have to do at a certain point is you're only as ready as you're going to be, and then you get out there and you grip it and you rip it. You got to stand up behind the ball and just swing away.
And it's also not the end of the world.
No.
That's the other thing. You're going to